It's a rainy day in spring on May 26, 1968. An 18-year-old Christine Rothschild is heading back to her dorm in Anne Emery Hall after having breakfast with a friend in the morning. At around 10 a.m., a man approaches Christine, stabbing her 14 times in the neck and chest, and stuffing her body in the bushes of Sterling Hall. Her body was found several hours later, with a broken jaw and ribs, and her gloves shoved in her mouth. A woman murdered in broad daylight, with no witnesses. Christine was an aspiring journalist, and was described as very attractive, even working as a model for a department store catalog in Chicago. Strangely, a bloody handkerchief and a broken umbrella were found near Christine's body, yet the evidence was mysteriously lost. This would be the first of a string of unsolved murders occurring in Wisconsin's capital city over the course of 14 years, from 1968 to 1982. The next victim on our list is 20-year-old Deborah J. Bennett. Deborah was a young girl who moved to Madison in hopes of making a life for herself, away from her small hometown of Ridgway, Wisconsin. However, Deborah was struggling, unemployed and unable to pay rent. Deborah applied for welfare. A woman who had worked with Deborah at one time stated that Deborah was into drugs and a few other things. Deborah was even arrested as a suspect in a burglary in June 1976. Inevitably, Deborah's poor decisions had her evicted from her apartment in 1421 Loft Gordons Avenue, and had no choice but to book a room at the Cardinal Hotel, where she would stay until she found a new place to live. She was given a key to her room. However, Deborah never checked in to the hotel. Deborah was last seen walking barefoot near her apartment in jeans, carrying a purse and a denim jacket over her arm. Her brother became concerned after not hearing from Deborah for a few days. He decided to file a missing persons report. That same day, on July 21st, 1976, a burned body was discovered by land assessors just outside of Cross Plains, Wisconsin. Dental records later confirmed that the body belonged to Deborah Bennett. An autopsy found that Deborah had likely been killed 10 days prior to her discovery, and that she was not only burned but stabbed multiple times. A few days later, the key that Deborah was given by the hotel manager was returned to the hotel in the mail. No note, no return address. Was the key returned by the killer or an innocent person who found the key? With little evidence to go off of, the case went cold. Julianne Hall, an 18-year-old from Fenimore, Wisconsin. In 1975, her parents won the state lottery jackpot of $300,000. Pretty lucky. Equivalent to over $1 million in today's money. Sadly, the money tore the family apart, and her parents divorced 2 years later. Julianne worked as a library assistant on university campus. She lived in a shared apartment with her brother, who had recently been released from prison. On June 16, 1978, Julianne hung out with her male friend and had a late-night meal at Maine King Tap, where she was last seen. On June 21, 1978, her body was found in a shallow grave a few miles outside the city of Madison. She was bludgeoned to death, taking several blows to the head. Not so lucky after all. Julie Spearschneider, gone without a trace. Last seen leaving 602 Club, a bar on University Avenue, with a man. and was never seen again. On March 27, 1979, Julie was reported missing. When a man recognized Julie's photo from the newspaper, he knew he had to talk with the police. He told them that he had given Julie Spearschneider a ride to the corner of Johnson and Beerley Street, where he dropped her off. She was accompanied by a man that was never identified. Julie's body wasn't found until 2 years later, in 1981, when a 16-year-old was hiking near Dunn, Wisconsin, and found the skeleton of what authorities later determined belonged to Julie. What's very strange about this case is that in 1981, all the evidence for Julie's case was destroyed, and in 1993, documents related to the case were also destroyed. All that remains are video recordings of interviews with family members and witnesses. Is someone trying to cover up her murder? 24-year-old Susan Kathleen LeMahieu was mildly developmentally disabled and physically disabled on the left side of her body. She lived in Allen Hall, a facility for the mentally disabled. After Susan never returned to her room, she was reported missing on December 15, 1979. A police officer believed Susan had wandered outside of Allen Hall and became lost as a result of her disability. Susan's body was found in the University of Wisconsin's Arboretum, near an area called the Lost City. Going off of their original theory, police believed Susan wandered into the forest and died when she became lost. However, an autopsy revealed that she was stabbed multiple times. Was Suzanne murdered in the woods? Or murdered elsewhere and hidden in the woods? While all other cases were in some way connected to the university, our next victim does not. Shirley Stewart was a 17-year-old working as a maid at the Dean Clinic in Madison. She was last seen on January 2, 1980, leaving her job. She was not found until over a year later, when archaeology students at the university were mapping out a state park a few miles north of Madison. The body was about 15 feet into thick woods and was partly covered by brush. An autopsy would not determine what exactly killed Shirley Stewart, but this discovery had police wondering if they had a serial killer on their hands. Our last murder is that of Donna Meraz. Donna was a business administration major at the university and maintained excellent grades while she was an undergrad. She was described as an attractive and honorable person. She worked as a waitress at Bittersweet Restaurant on State Street while she was at college. On July 2nd, 1982, she was heading home from work, getting off of the bus, walking through a well-lit path through Camp Randall Stadium. At around midnight, suddenly, someone attacked her from behind. They stabbed Donna multiple times in the chest, face, and arms. Donna screamed for help while fighting off the attacker. People who lived near the stadium heard her screams and called the police. Police arrived to find Donna Meraz on the ground near Gate 5 of Randall Stadium. Donna Meraz was pronounced dead a few hours later at the university hospital. The attacker did not take any of Meraz's belongings. Perhaps the attacker only intended to kill Donna Meraz. To this day, all 7 women's cases remain open. Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole, a team of notorious serial killers, confessed to the killing of these women when driving through Madison, Wisconsin many years ago. However, they confessed to hundreds of unsolved murders throughout the United States. and their stories just didn't add up, removing them as the serial killers in the capital city killings. Strangely, evidence was destroyed or lost in several of these cases. Perhaps a police officer or someone working on the inside with the police department is the serial killer. Very possible. With no evidence, any guess is as good as the last. What do all these killings have in common? They were all young women. None were sexually assaulted. All were stabbed. All had little evidence, or no evidence. Whoever was doing the killings was clearly doing it for fun. And they were good at it. They knew when to strike and how to get away with it. One potential suspect I found interesting is a man by the name of Niels Bjorn Jorgensen. Niels was a medical student at the University of Wisconsin, and when he first laid eyes on Christine Rothschild, he became infatuated with her beauty. She was a model after all. Niels was timid and didn't have the courage to talk to Christine, but he couldn't stay away from her. Christine began to catch on to Niels and was aware that he was stalking her. He would follow her around Memorial Library, and Christine would even have theories that he was watching her through her window. Christine was concerned, and after telling her friends about the potential stalker, she told the campus police. Campus police told her to stay alert and buy a whistle. Christine bought a whistle, but in the end, it wasn't enough to save her. Perhaps Niels became angry with Christine, or perhaps he was jealous after he spotted her returning from a date with another man. Police autopsies found that Christine was stabbed by a surgical knife 14 times. Who would have access to a surgical knife? Niels, the medical student, of course. No one was arrested, and Niels has never been questioned. He got away with it. And it's possible that the thrill of getting away with the murder of Christine Rothschild left Niels bloodthirsty, wanting to kill again. Over the course of 14 years, it is possible that Niels killed these several women.